Most leaks don't start at the roof, they start in the walls. That's why it's super important to choose the correct building wrap for your project. So in this video, we're going to be walking through the pros and cons of rigid air barrier versus flexible building wrap and what I like to use on my projects. Oh, you already know that because you can see we've frickin' smashed out the eco ply barrier system over here. But I'm going to tell you exactly why I've used this on this project and why I would use flexible building paper on another project. But first, I reckon we throw the drone up in the air and get some shots of this.
So back up the trunk, let's hit the road. DJ to the front, that's the stereo. Just keep chasing the sun, don't care where we go. On a road trip with you. No job for a month, so it's time to roll. Holidays just begun, leave the stress at home. We just keep chasing the sun, don't care where we go. On a road trip with you, road tripping with you. Oh, 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 road tripping with you. Oh, 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 oh. Time to hit the highway. Oh, but hold up, a quick stop at the bottle shop.
Sweet. So what's the purpose of having a wrap, a building wrap? Well, it's pretty much a secondary layer of defense for any weather tightness issues that occur in the cladding system that goes over the top. And it stops any of the structural members of the frame behind this getting damaged, weakening, and then obviously creating structural issues in the long run. In any sort of wrap system, I guess any product has to go through a series of testing to meet the requirements of the New Zealand Building Code and the conditions that we have here in New Zealand. Some of them are like the building performance or brands. You might see like brands appraised on stuff, which means it's gone through the correct testing procedures for our harsh weather conditions. So we really only have two options for building underlay here in New Zealand. One of them is a flexible building underlay. Sort of comes in a big roll. You can get it in 2750 or 1350 height, and it pretty much rolls right over the top of the frames, gets stapled to the frames and cut out around the windows. Very easy to install, lightweight. It's probably the most common one here, just due to the cost effectiveness and the ease to install. Thing is, it needs to be installed correctly. A lot of times you'll see sags in the paper and stuff like that, which sort of defeats the purpose of it. We want it to be nice and tight against the frame. So in windy conditions and stuff like that, that can be quite difficult. But overall, that is probably definitely the most common used building wrap here in New Zealand. And the second option is RAB board. RAB stands for rigid air barrier, which you can sort of see in behind me. That's what we've gone for in this project, which I'll talk to you about why I used it in a second. But I think the RAB board is a far more superior product. There's so many more benefits in behind it. One being the structural stability of it. Any sort of RAB board can be used for structural elements, so it can be used for bracing. It can also be used for uplift in certain situations, which is really cool. So it just gives the whole wall a bit more structural stability. Overall, probably better weather tightness, in all honesty. It's going to last far longer, I reckon anyway, than a flexible building underlay. Hey, look, the technology these days is pretty epic, so I wouldn't count on that. But just my opinion. So there's three sort of RAB boards here in New Zealand. One being the Eco Ply barrier. This is the one that we use the most if we're going to be using it. There's also the fiber cement one. I don't know who makes that, probably Hardy's. And then also a jib weather line, which I'm still not too sure about that product as well. Putting jib on the outside of the building, but of course it's gone through all the right testing, so I'm sure it's fine. But yeah, the purpose for me using a rigid air barrier on this project itself is the benefit of keeping things really watertight while installing the insulation from the outside. Now, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you're doing a new build project, you can actually put the rigid air barrier on, windows in, head flashings on, and battens down the sides of the windows. Got all your tapes and stuff sorted. You can actually go on inside and start completing the insulation and jibbing, because that's how watertight it is. So it's a great way to sort of push the job forward faster, because you can have a crew on the inside doing their thing and then the crew on the outside actually completing the cladding, which is really cool. Now, of course, cost issues with it. It's fairly expensive, but when you weigh up the options for putting some scaffolding up and sort of tenting this thing up, or having to tarp it, which wouldn't be too bad, but yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's sort of more cost effective to actually install it, and the benefits are there with the structural stability of the RAB board itself. So what would I use on my projects? Well, you sort of already know. It depends on the situation, really. Look, it depends on the wind zone of the property, which means, you know, how heavy the winds are going to be coming in. So a low to medium wind zone, I'd probably be using flexible building wrap on a new build. On a reclad without a tent over the top, I'd probably be going for a RAB board, just because I think the pros outweigh the cons in that situation, especially financially. But every situation's different, to be honest with you. If the budget allows it, I would always go for a RAB board all day, every day, just because it has, I think it's just a better product overall. The air tightness of it as well is far better than a flexible building wrap. Yeah, and it's just a high performing product overall, I reckon. Anyway, that's going to conclude the video. I know this was a little bit different. There was no actual building work going on. Unfortunately, I actually just had to frickin' smash through all this eco-ply and get it nice and weather tight on this project, just due to the fact that the weather was so inconsistent up here. But we do have videos on installing this on a previous project that we did just across the road, the beach house project. So you can go check that series out if you like. I guess the main takeaway here is that the rigid air barrier is a far more superior product. Structural stability, it has a far greater air tightness capacity. And the only thing is it costs a lot more. And with the flexible building wrap, that's going to be on probably 90% of the homes, you know, just due to the fact that of the ease of install and the lightweightness, the cost effectiveness and the lightweight aspect of it. I'm rambling now. Peace.
Just keep chasing the sun, don't care where we go.